welcome back to Red Brick Recap. This week we have episode 8. I'm once again joined by my co-host Ted Brennan. Ted, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Happy Halloween to everyone out there, and should be a good episode. I'm excited for this one.
Well, we have a really special episode because for the first time on the pod, we have a special guest from the Miami basketball team. So without further ado, please welcome Jackson Kotecki. Jackson, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Of course. Well, we'll jump right in. We're 5 days out from the start of the season, from tip-off. What's the vibe like in that locker room? What are you guys looking forward to going into the season?
Dude, man, we're pumped, man. We're finally excited to play someone other than ourselves because we've been practicing since second week of June, and we've just been playing against each other all the way up until now. So now we're finally able to. We've had a couple scrimmages, but we're kind of able to see how the squad does in a real game. But we're prepared and we're excited to get to battle.
Absolutely. Well, you're part of a freshman core that got a lot of game action out of conference and in conference. I think it was 5 freshmen. What can you say about that core and how you and them have stepped up and kind of jumped into this contributing role as part of this program?
Coach obviously brought in 5 freshmen last year, and it's kind of unheard of to bring in that many freshmen. And obviously we all played and we all had kind of a role last year, and this year all of our roles have grown. So yeah, we've all grown, we've all matured, and it's like the game is all kind of slowing down for every single one of us, and we're playing more. It kind of helped us mature being brought in and kind of held to such a high standard. It kind of helps us kind of grow and kind of get better and work on our game. And I guess it's been a benefit for us, really.
Jackson, thinking about your growth coming into your sophomore year, you talked about the game slowing down, but are there any kind of goals you have for yourself this season that, whether it's a personal goal or anything that aligns with the team, like what are you looking to accomplish this season?
Man, I mean, the main goal that I have right now is just I want to win a MAC championship. I want to get to March Madness. I want to kind of get Miami, Ohio, just kind of back to where it used to be. We used to go to March Madness all the time. We haven't gone there in a couple of years, or it's been a long time actually. But yeah, no, I'm just I want to get Oxford back kind of rocking again, and just kind of some hype behind the basketball team because we 100% have enough talent to do so.
Well, speaking of the MAC, it's a conference that is always full of parity. It's always kind of muddy. It's always within a couple of games. This year, it seems like more than ever, there's plenty of teams ready to take a leap. What makes Miami and this team especially stand out from the rest of the MAC?
The one thing that we have that no other team has, and is just we have a ton of depth. We have anybody could play on our team. Anybody could start really from the first guy all the way to the 10th guy. We have firepower just all the way down the bench, and we're gonna be playing a lot of guys. Coach said we're gonna be playing a lot of guys, and you just got to be ready to go, and we're gonna have to use that to our advantage because a lot of teams, they only have their 5 guys, but not a lot of depth. But we're able to kind of bring in and just keep resurfacing the firepower. So we gotta use that to our advantage.
That's one of the good things about Coach Steele is that he's a very, very good recruiter. That's why he's brought to Miami. Obviously, he recruited you and 4 other freshmen, and then he brings in a class of Brant Byers. He brings in a ton of transfers. Luke Skaljak as well as a freshman. He brings in a ton of transfers, and like you said, there's a ton of depth. But now that some of the seniors have graduated, especially Darwishi Hunter, Anderson Marambo, those are 2 guys that really carry the offensive workload. Where does this team find some new offense?
The big transfer that we got that provides a lot of firepower, his name's Cam Kraft. He's gonna provide a big load for just shot making. His ability to just kind of come off the dribble and just make tough fadeaway shots is just kind of second to none. I've only seen a couple of guys I can only count on a hand that I've been able to see just make some of these shots that he makes. But we have that. But really, anybody on our team can score, go get a bucket. I mean, we all can score. We're all skilled, and we all have I guess, the ability to do so. So it's going to be it's not going to be mainly just one or two guys. It's going to be kind of everybody contributing and putting in, because we're going to be able to run that score up. So I'm excited for this year.
Yeah, I had it in my notes from the scrimmage that you guys did before one of the football games, that Cam can score from pretty much anywhere on the floor, and he showed it in that scrimmage. And I'm looking forward to see what he can do this season.
Yeah.
Thinking more about like the front court, like obviously as Ted said, Marambo's gone, but it's still a loaded front court. Like Reese Potter's back, and he showed signs of being a really good player last year. And Antoine Woolfolk's coming in. Dan Lewis can kind of play in that front court too. Where do you see yourself fitting in with that core of players in the front court?
I'm right there with Reese, Antoine, and I guess Dan's been more playing kind of a wing area. He kind of had to fill in this past weekend when we had a scrimmage against Murray State because Twan was out. He was out sick. But yeah, no, we're all gonna be. It's not kind of like who's gonna be like the main five. We're all gonna be kind of playing with each other. Steele's working on having us like play two bigs at the same time. So we're all going to be able to play together, and we're all going to be able to just kind of play off of each other. And it's not, I guess we have a very unselfish team this year, so no one really cares about who plays, who starts, who comes in the game. It's just all about just kind of winning for the guy next to you, because we all care about each other so much, and we have this is the most tight team I've ever been a part of. So I'm grateful for that, and it's gonna be a fun year.
You talk about how tight you are with this team. Is there anybody on the team that you have a special type of chemistry with, that you just really enjoy playing with, and that every time you're on the floor with them, you just are grateful that you're able to play with them?
Yeah, obviously the guys that I've been with, like my guy Cooper, my guy Evan, like all those guys, all the freshmen basically, just because I'm kind of used to playing with them so far, and just we all live with each other, so it's like we're with each other all the time. So we got a pretty unbreakable bond there. But yeah, no, there's not really anybody on the team I wouldn't say that I want to play with. Like we all share the ball, we all know how to find each other at our spots, and everyone plays hard. So that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, you mentioned Ipsaro and Cooper. Obviously, both freshman guards both played a pretty pivotal role at the guard positions last year. How, as a front court player, does it help to or benefit you to have guys that you have such good chemistry with when you're trying to get in an offensive flow that you have?
Yeah, man, Evan and Coop, man, they're the anchors of the team, man. They bring up the ball, they're guarding full court, and I'm gonna throw Luke in there too, because you guys haven't seen Luke yet, but Luke's special. But yeah, those three guys, man, they're the ones they get us in the offense. They're the ones that are picking up full court. They're the ones kind of running the show. And yeah, it's important to have guys like that are selfless and that play hard and to play for each other on your team.
You bring up Luke. We've talked a little bit about Brant Byers as well, redshirt freshman. From your freshman year, was there anything that you took away that you've been instilling on some of these young guys coming in?
Yeah, just the one thing that I took away, the big thing I took away from freshman year is that just keep the game. If you keep the game simple, it's going to work out for you. And that's something that I've been doing a lot better job at this year than last year's. Last year is kind of, you're used to high school, and then like the game's so much different, so much faster than high school. But just keeping it simple, I've been able to be a really productive player when I'm keeping it simple, and I'm just kind of playing within myself and don't try to do too much. So that's kind of been the message that that coach and like I myself, when I've been kind of talking with them, that's kind of the message that I've been trying to get across. But yeah, no, it's just being simple and just playing simple out there it's very important for doing well at this level.
Yeah, you mentioned high school. I want to talk about that for a second. I'm also a Chicago guy, so it's always cool to see a guy. I grew up in the Catholic League as well, so it's always cool to see a guy from the Catholic League go up, play at college, even if Ignatius was kind of our arch rival. So how do you think the Catholic League in your high school? I mean, obviously, St. Ignatius is a fantastic program. The Catholic League is one of, if not the hardest basketball conferences in the Midwest. How do you think that experience set you up for playing college ball?
I mean, man, it 100% set me up. How my coach at Ignatius, how we would run practices, like pretty identical to college practices. And the competition we were playing, I was playing, it felt like I was playing college hoopers. Like there were kids that were going to be in college every game, every night. So it was definitely tough. It wasn't easy competition. I wasn't out here steamrolling teams by 30 every game. We would have close games. Like obviously we would have some blowouts, but they were predominantly close games. And yeah, no, just playing against that level of competition and just other guys that were on the way to go play somewhere in college, it definitely helped kind of prepare myself a little bit for playing in college.
Yeah, speaking of coming to college, obviously Miami gave you looks, but what was it that drew you to come to Miami and play for Miami basketball? What was it that stuck out to you? Anything like that during your recruiting process that made you go, Miami's the place I gotta be?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's another mid-major in the country that you could go to that has good academics, has a good just social life, great campus, and obviously it has good sports, and we got a new coach and all that stuff, and it was just it just felt like the right place for me because they all had my my personal what's that word? Just kind of my personal thoughts, like kind of in their mind when they were kind of recruiting me. They were kind of showing me how they were going to develop me and all this stuff. And it just kind of was a no-brainer that they really wanted me to come here, and the school is just amazing. So it's been great so far.
Taking a look at the schedule coming up for you guys this season, there's some tough road trips. Obviously played at Ohio State last season. This year, traveling to Michigan, traveling to IU. As a college player at a program like Miami, where the let's say the atmosphere at Millette isn't always up to par that some other college programs have. How cool is it to go and see these courts and these arenas?
It's awesome. It's gonna be obviously everyone wants to go play at these big arenas. It's what you've been dreaming for since you were a little kid. But yeah, man, it's gonna be cool once we get there. I'm gonna let it soak in, probably let it shoot around. But by the time game comes, it's just another game. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna take business, and yeah, we're gonna go out there and we're gonna get those wins.
Yeah, I personally am out of questions. I don't know about you, Jack.
Yeah, I just want to just finish off with a kind of a big overarching question. So obviously you've been here for 2 years now. What is your message to fans before this season? That what should we be looking out for Miami basketball this season?
All I gotta say is this year's just different, man. We have the tightest team we've ever had before. Any guy on the team, 1 through however many guys on the team, 1 through 13, we could go out and hang out with anybody. Anybody can go hang out with anybody. And I don't think I've ever been a part of a team that's been like that. There's always kind of somewhere like groups and people that get along with each other more, but everyone gets along with everyone, and we all play together. We all play hard. And I mean, that alone will take you a far way. And if we execute and if we just keep working hard and keep practicing hard like we have been, it's gonna be scary this year.
All right, well, Jackson, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us. First game's 5 days away. Good luck this season. We're excited to see what you guys do. And yeah, thanks again.
Appreciate you guys.
Have a good one. Well, thanks again to Jackson Kotecki for jumping on the podcast to talk a little bit about Miami basketball. Be sure to follow them this season. As he said, a bunch of new faces. Travis Steele's got his guys in place now. Should be a really fun season with some really cool games. I'm really hoping that I can get a press pass for that Indiana game at Assembly Hall. That's going to be really cool. Michigan on the road, that's going to be a really fun game. Even like Vermont, like these are some really, really fun games to keep an eye on. And then obviously the MAC we've talked about is just loaded with good basketball teams this year. So it'll be a fun season.
Yeah, absolutely. Their first game, Monday, 6:30 p.m. at App State in the MAC Sun Belt Challenge. I'm glad they're bringing that back. I really did enjoy that last year, kind of two Group of 5 conferences if you're talking college football. But yeah, 2 mid-major schools that are going at it. And then they'll have another MAC Sun Belt at home later on in the year. But that game should be on ESPN Plus, so tune into that one. But yeah, like you said, Jack, there are a lot of games that you schedule, that you circle on the schedule. One of the, 2 of the big ones that we've talked about, Michigan, we've talked about Indiana. I want to circle that Vermont game too. You just brought it up. If you remember last year, Miami had the crazy buzzer beater with Darwishi Hunter to win the game. It was a half court shot, bank shot to win the game. I remember watching that live and absolutely losing my mind. But yeah, and then once you get to MAC play, the teams that you really schedule or circle, Akron. You beat Akron last year on a Darwishi Hunter buzzer beat or almost buzzer beater, but
Right.
you play them again, which is huge, and they're picked to be top conference. Ohio, you circle. You got 2 games at Ohio, or 2 games against Ohio, one at home, one away. Those are teams that if you can beat, Toledo too. If those are teams that if you can beat them, you're top of conference.
Right. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I was looking at, I did a little bit of research. Actually didn't end up asking Jackson about it, but they were sixth. Miami was selected sixth in the preseason poll. And Miami's a good basketball team. They were good. They went to the conference tournament last year, and that just tells you about the depth of this conference. And I think among MAC teams, they were fifth in Ken Palm. I think it was 210 overall they were at. So like that just shows you how strong this conference is. And even with the new faces that Miami has, they can take a step forward. But that the MAC is, I feel like Travis Steele said it every single game last year. The MAC is muddy. Like there's no clear front runner this year.
Absolutely. A lot of people picked Akron. I know Akron was top of the ranks last year. They were top of the ranks this year in the preseason poll, but and people have been joking around that Akron has the most amount of NIL money, which I, again, not sure if that's true or not. I've seen that from different places, but Steele's brother, John Gross, he is an incredible recruiter, and I think that's one of the cool things about the MAC is that you don't have teams, you don't have 12 teams that are all good at recruiting. It's you have some teams who are good at recruiting, and you have other teams who their system is just so hard to beat. Tony Busby, what he's doing at Central Michigan, that team, they could have a bunch of walk-ons, and Tony Busby's going to get the most out of those guys, and it's going to be a game down to the wire, and it's muddy. Each one of these games, I don't look at a single one of these games and go, Miami can confidently blow this team out.
Right.
But and that's the fun part about the MAC. You're not necessarily going to see a ton of blowouts. You're going to see these close, down to the wire games where it's all about momentum. And one of the goals that I think Coach Steele should look at this year is his first year when it was considered a retooling, rebuilding year, they were 8th in the conference and they just snuck into the tournament. Last year they were anywhere from 3 through 5 until like the last week, and they dropped all the way down to 7. If they are in that same position again, their goal should be to stay there, do everything in their power to stay there. If they happen to fall, the hope is that they should fall no lower than 6 in the conference. They just keep building momentum, keep moving up the ladder, and eventually, hopefully, we'll see a second round game, and maybe we'll see a championship game or a semifinal game. And they just need to keep building. And I think one of the things that Jackson emphasized is that this is a team of depth. This is a team that's going to be around for a while. That's the big thing, right? I mean, we talk about it with football, but with all the transfers and all the ability to move teams, like this is a team that should be around for a while. And I think that's what Steele emphasizes in his recruiting is like, I don't want you just for 1 year. I want you here for the rest of your career. Let's build something here. Let's bring Oxford back to the days of, Wally Zerbiak, Ron Harper, Wayne Embry, and Jackson brought that up is he and these other guys on the team want to bring basketball back. And for me as a basketball fan, just in general, like I love that. I love that mentality. I love the fact that they're going into the season with, their hard hats on, lunch pail, like, let's go do it.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a really cool mindset to have. I also like the fact that they recognize that the history of this program and realize that like this is kind of a sleeping giant. I'm not saying like we were ever like, top 15 program in the country, but there's a lot of history here. Like we have gone to Sweet 16s. We have made tournament, like NCAA tournament runs, and to recognize that history and realize, okay, that's the standard. We need to get back there was really encouraging to see. So I was really, really impressed by that. let's jump into the rest of what we got to talk about today. Let's do a quick rundown of the top stories going on around Miami. Obviously, the biggest story this week: Chuck Martin gets his record, his 60th win at Miami. We talked about it last week, so we're not going to spend a ton of time on it today. But after the game, they did a really cool tribute video to him with all of his players and guys like Sean McVay and John Harbaugh congratulating him. Really cool to see. Really kind of emotional moment, I think, on the field for him, which was really cool to be a part of. Congratulations to Chuck Martin, living legend, arguably the best coach Miami's had, definitely in recent years. Good. So just hats off to Chuck. Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, don't stop at 60. Keep on going.
Yeah.
Gotta win out the season to have a chance at Detroit. So
yeah. Well, outside of football, we got a lot of other sports that have been going on. 3 Miami tennis players are headed to nationals after their MAC wins. Really impressive stuff. I don't have their names down. That's on me. But really cool to see that program kind of excel on a national level, which is really awesome to see.
Yeah, this was if I remember correctly, this is the first year that the MAC held some sort of like individual tournament and doubles tournament. And they won both the singles and the doubles, which is incredible. I'm trying to pull up the names right now. It is, so in doubles, it was Amelia Valentinison. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And Sarah Zalukar. Those are my Miami doubles players. And then the singles player is Catherine Denisiewicz Slowak. Again, I'm sorry if I absolutely butchered their names, but I wanted to shout them out. I wanted to recognize them because they deserve all the credit in the world. They were incredible. Catherine, she dropped her first set, won her next 2 sets in convincing fashion, and then the doubles pairing won in convincing fashion.
Yeah, really cool. Congratulations to them. Keep an eye out for them in the nationals. I think it's in 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to hockey, goalie Ethan Daumier was named the NCHC Rookie of the Week after his 34 out of 35 saves in a 4-1 win over Lindenwood. I've been, ringing the bell on Braveris for the last couple of weeks saying he's the guy in goal, but that's a really fun competition you have now with him and Daumier.
Yeah, I think it's only going to make each of them better. Iron sharpens iron. If you got some guy in behind you coming up the ranks, like, you obviously want the starting spot, but you got the guy behind you, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, sweet, like, I can be better, I can play better, things like that. And they got a 2-game set against RPI this weekend. The hockey team does, and look, we talked about it in our preview for hockey with Joe. Is we wanted them to have, or Joe at least wanted them to have 5, 6, 7 wins out of conference. The most they can get right now is 5 out of conference wins because it's this weekend at RPI, and then they start the NCHC gauntlet run.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have a winning record at home right now. They're 3-2 at home, and then they're 0-1-2 on the road. 3-3-2 overall. Hopefully, they can pick up some wins against RPI. I believe, if I remember correctly, Joe said this program's only been around for 3 years. So the hope is that Miami can, I don't want to say stomp on them, but Miami can Miami can get some wins, because then it's a not fun schedule. It's at St. Cloud State, Minnesota Duluth at home, at Omaha versus North Dakota, and that's just December. And then you get into the rest of the schedule, and it is just
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Play the defending national champions on the road.
Yeah, it's holy milk. But yeah, hey, that's what Miami signed up for in the NCAC. They know each and every night they got to bring their best. So this is the last set of games to get the kinks out, get the mistakes out, because when you play these teams, you got to be on your A game.
One quick note before we move on. I don't know if I'm just ignorant and I never noticed this. Is Arizona State in the NCHC?
So yeah, they just moved over to the NCHC. I believe last year was the year that they moved into the NCHC. It seems a little weird considering that like most of the NCHC teams are close by.
Well,
yeah.
somewhat.
So actually, this is Arizona State's first year in the NCHC. They, like I said, they just moved over into the NCHC, and They're a good program. They're a good program. They were ranked as high as 13th last season when we played them. And look, I mean, like I said, they're a good program. So it adds more competition. Like I just said, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was just commenting on the fact that you look at like the other teams in our conference, and you've got Colorado, Denver, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, and then you've got Arizona. Like that, the geography of it just kind of threw me off there for a second.
Yeah, I mean, look, the geography is a little weird, but even if you extend it a little bit, I mean, it's not like Miami is super close to North Dakota. I mean, it's probably about a similar trip from Oxford to North Dakota as it is from Oxford to, I mean, hell, even like parts of even Colorado Springs or Arizona. So the geography is a little weird, but hey, that's what happens with conference realignment and when teams add teams and stuff like that. But it's nothing the Red Hawks can't handle.
Agreed. Let's jump into women's soccer before we get into talking about football. Women's soccer, 10 games unbeaten at home.
Whoa. Whew.
Yeah, 3 wins and 5 ties this year. They have their last game at home today against OU, another Battle of the Bricks at 3 p.m. Sadly, I will be in class, so I cannot make it. But last game before Max. I think there's 6th in the conference right now. I don't have the rules in front of me of how many teams make it to the MAC MAC tournament. I think it's 8 teams because there's quarters, semis, and championships. So I think Miami's would be in as things stand. So yeah, good luck to them. Last game against OU, pick up a win against the arch rivals would be really cool to see. Yeah, good luck to them. But going into the tournament.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the women's soccer page right now. Like you said, Miami sits 6th. I can come back, or we can come back to me when I figure out the rules, but we can move on to the CMU.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, let's jump right into Central Michigan. If you don't know, score was a little lopsided. Miami took away a dominant win, 46-7. For the first half, I don't think that scoreline indicates how close it was, or at least for the first quarter, especially kind of once Gabbert took a seat for a second. It very easily could have been a 1-score game at 13-10 and going into halftime if the chips had fallen a different way. But it's taking a 16-7 win or 16-7 lead into halftime is definitely encouraging. Coach Martin said he was a little nervous in that stretch where it looked like Central Michigan could have made a run to kind of get back into the ball game. But I mean, the scoreline indicates it. The second half was just an absolute blowout. It was nothing short of dominant. There was, I think, 3 straight possessions in the 3rd/4th quarter where Miami had the ball on the 5-yard line within like 3 plays of them getting the ball. It was unreal. Like the offensive dominance and the defensive performance were both out of this world, and I could rave about it until midnight tonight. But obviously we only have an hour, so I'll restrain myself.
Yeah, MAC soccer update. Top 6 teams make it, so Miami can sneak into the playoffs. They will just need a little bit of help. They'll obviously need to win the last couple of matches, and but yeah, they have a chance to sneak in. But anyways, back to CMU. Watching that game live was a little nerve-wracking at first. Like you said, Chuck Martin said, watching them go up 7-3 with very little resistance in the run game was kind of the kick in the teeth that Miami needed to get it going. Because I mean, it was chunk play after chunk play at the beginning, just with the run game. And we said that the run defense has been much improved. And kind of watching that first possession that CMU had, I was like, okay, what happened to our run defense? But they kicked it into gear, and we talked about playing with a lead. They were up 3-0, then went down 7-3. But once they had the lead, they were completely in charge of this game.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the biggest story of the game, in my opinion, at least. For a second there, it looked like Gabbert was down again. Looked like Miami had lost their QB1 again. Obviously, his injury history has been well documented. According to Coach Martin after the game, there was no plan to put Brett back in the ballgame after he went down with, I think it was a shoulder injury. It looked like it was when he was walking off the field. But yeah, Gabbert said there was no way he was leaving that game. There was no way he was coming out. I mean, Coach Martin said, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said that's why he came back. He came back to win these games in the conference and get back to Detroit. That's the fire that, I mean, every coach wants that. Every fan wants to see that. But even though he came back and put on a very good performance, it was a little nerve-wracking to see our quarterback go down with another injury.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the injury history for Gabbert, and it is extensive, to say the least. So watching him go down live, you just feel for the kid. I mean, I don't even know why I call him a kid. He's 4 years older than I am. But you just feel for him because he spent so much time getting healthy. He spent so much time trying to stay on the field, and he just unfortunately just took a hit, fell on his shoulder wrong, and he was able to come back, which is good. But now the question becomes, okay, if he doesn't stay upright, is he prone to another injury? Is he prone to getting hurt again? And I mean, who knows? And if he does go down, who replaces him? Because look, I mean, outside of the touchdown pass at the beginning of or at the end of the drive that Hessen came in and completed, which all things considered, very nice ball. He didn't look great outside of that. He didn't look like somebody who could carry a team.
I think we're in two different boats here. I honestly thought he looked okay given the circumstances. I mean, you're coming in cold. You're coming in basically with no warm up after he goes down, and just expected to come in against a pretty good Central Michigan defense, especially up to that point. The defense on Central Michigan looks like they're playing the ball really nicely. So I'll give Hessen a lot of credit for finishing off the touchdown drive. And yeah, there was moments where he didn't look great, but I mean, that's kind of what you expect going to a backup quarterback unexpectedly. So I'm going to cut him some slack there. I think given ample preparation, I think he can lead this team. This is the second time we've really seen him in extended action. And the first time was against App State in a bowl game that, frankly, just you can't really take any sort of takeaways from that performance because the rain just made it a non-game. So obviously this is all a moot point if Brett stays healthy, if he's able to finish out the season. But I honestly was filled with a little bit of confidence that, God forbid, if we do lose QB1 again, Hessen can step in and play that role.
Yeah, I mean, look, I hope I eat my words. If Hessen were to get in for an extended period of time again, I hope I eat my words. Miami tends to have a pretty good backup plan, for lack of better terms, when it comes to Gabbert, because we've seen it now a couple times with A.J. Mayer and Avion Smith. Hopefully we don't have to see it with Hessen, but if we do, hopefully he makes me, look kind of like a fool up here. But yeah, I think, I won't dive too much into it, but I guess I wasn't blown away with it. I wasn't necessarily like, okay, it was kind of like, when I knew Avion would come to the game or I knew AJ Mayer would come into the game, I had a little bit more confidence where it was like, okay, I know these guys can be good, but I personally did not see that with Hessen. But again, I am more than willing to, take my lumps and say that, like, look, we didn't see him for an extended period of time. And, if he's given the chance, hopefully he makes me shut up. So mark it down. We're about 30 minutes into the podcast. So mark it down. If he ever comes in and he does well, put that clip on blast.
Yeah, there we go. That's going to go against your whole Ted knows ball narrative. Let's talk quickly about some of the other offensive playmakers from Saturday. Keon Mosey. We talked about it week on week that Miami wants to establish their run. They need to establish a lead back, and Mosey continues to do that. 120 yards on the ground, obviously 72 yards on that one run kind of buoys that number up a little bit. But, I mean, that's exactly what you ask for, 120 yards on the ground. Also want to shout out the backup running backs, Jordan Brunson and Kevin Davis, both burst out for long runs at the start of their drives. It felt like deja vu. Every time Miami got the ball on their own 30-yard line, one of the running backs was breaking out for a 65-yarder and getting tackled at like the 2 or 3 yard line. It seemed like every possession that was happening.
Yeah. I'm loving Keon Mosey right now. He has stepped in, and it took him a little while to get going. We didn't really see too much of him in those first 3 games, but the the UMass game was his coming out party, and ever since then, I think he's had one game under 100 yards rushing, which is just nuts. From someone who didn't get a ton of extended playing time last year, Mosey has been everything that Miami has needed him to be and more. And I think that opens up it opens up a lot for Jordan Brunson and Kevin Davis. I mean, you're focused on stopping Mosey, and then all of a sudden Brunson comes in and it's like, okay, this is a completely different running back. How do we focus on him? And then boom, he's already gone by the time you're like, okay, we got to focus on this guy now.
Yeah, absolutely. I also want to shout out the receiving game, the passing game. Obviously, the quarterback situation made it a little dicey, but I thought the receiver stepped up and played a really, really nice game. Javon Tracy's my MVP this week. Javon Tracy looks like he can be a really special player, and he's only a sophomore. Like, he is a really, really standout receiver and looked like a number one receiver on Saturday. I mean, we talked about it. That one-handed catch was absolutely filthy. Like, there was an audible gasp in the press box when he pulled that down. It was absolutely insane. And obviously that sets up a touchdown. I think he went for 5 for almost 120 yards and a touchdown pass. That's elite numbers out of a wide receiver. That's exactly what you want out of a guy, especially when you have a guy like Brett Gabbert, who, he's been, don't get me wrong, much better in the last couple of weeks. But we have seen there have been times where he's struggled. To have a guy that you can go to consistently and know that he's going to give you a big play, or at least give you a chance to make a big play, it's got to be a huge confidence boost for that offense.
Yeah, in Gabbert's time here, he's always had that number one wide receiver that he can go to and he can trust. You know, he can throw to when you need a catch. He can throw to when you need a momentum swing. It was Jack Sorensen when Brett first got here. It was Mac Hippenhammer. It was Mac Hippenhammer for the last couple of years. Then it was Gage Larvin last year. And now we're seeing Tracy evolve into that guy, which is huge for this offense, especially considering like we haven't heard a ton from McDonald and Virgil. Like, we've heard the deep passes to Virgil. We've seen a couple check downs to McDonald here and there, but none of them have really broken out into that number one wide receiver like we were kind of expecting at the beginning of the year. Tracy has ended that conversation. He is the guy to go to now. And to have a safety blanket in McDonald, but then to have your guy in Tracy, like, that adds so much dynamic to your offense.
Yeah, and I think we have Cade McDonald as a safety blanket. You can't ask for a much better safety blanket. I remember distinctly sitting here after the Northwestern game thinking he was the number one guy. Like, he was going to lead this team in yards, receptions, TDs, all of it. Obviously, that hasn't exactly been the case, but it's not like he's been bad.
No, not at all.
He's been really good, and so has Virgil. And for the second straight game, Cam Perry's getting touches. I talked about him last week, that he didn't really get a whole lot of action the first couple of weeks. This is the second game in a row where he's made some impact plays. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. Obviously, Tracy was the option for the big play, but all of these receivers stepped up and made plays when they had to. So having basically 4, maybe 5 guys even you can rely on to get you a catch and some extra yards is got to be a huge, I keep saying it, but a huge confidence boost. If you're an offensive play caller saying, okay, I can call this guy's number and he's going to go make a play for me, has to be a really good feeling.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not much more to say. It adds a huge dynamic to the offense, and it makes the offense hum a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I want to talk about too is, where's Andre Johnson? I didn't see him on the injury report. I could have misread it. He might have been out. It felt like he was on the field for ballpark 60% of pass plays last couple of weeks, and I don't think I've seen him on the field at all in the last couple of weeks. Maybe that's Cam Perry stepping up and taking that spot. But on paper, you see an Arizona State transfer 6'3", you're thinking, ooh, outside threat, opposite Virgil. Like, that's a playmaker, and it really hasn't worked out for him, which is a shame. But I just want to where has he been?
I think we're seeing another Miles Marshall situation where Miles Marshall, he came in from Indiana, and you're like, oh, Indiana wide receiver, Big Ten wide receiver. Let's get it. Like, that's gonna be huge. And he didn't make a ton of catches. He didn't really throw him the ball all that much, and he slowly kind of faded off the field in favor of Larvin. and in favor of some of these other Miami wide receivers. So I think we're seeing a similar thing with Andre Johnson, where you expected more out of him, and maybe that's just us. Honestly,
Yeah.
maybe that's us putting a lot of stock into the fact that he's an Arizona State transfer.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
On paper, yeah, maybe that this was the game plan the whole time, and we were just completely overthinking it. That's entirely possible. We're not in the room making these decisions, so that could also be us. Another person that I think we talked about too, honestly I thought was going to have a much bigger impact this season was Jack Coldiron. Like, obviously he's battling back from some injuries, but I mean, this was a guy that was a huge focal point of their offense last year and really hasn't been involved much this year. Maybe that's just a scheme thing, because I don't think the tight ends have been involved in the pass game a ton this year, at least not as much as last year. And maybe that's a way to kind of get some extra protection on the outside, having an extra blocker in there. But I mean, this is a guy that's an all MAC player, and on paper it looked like he was going to have another great season, and just hasn't really gone his way.
Yeah, I mean, Coldiron, he's got, looking at the stats here, he's played in 6 games. He's got 7 receptions for 59 yards and no touchdowns. And outside of that, there's 2 other tight ends who have caught passes. Daniel Preston, he's caught 2 passes for 12 yards. Connor Briggs, 1 pass for 5 yards and a touchdown. I think you're right. I think it probably is a scheme thing, because outside of it, all of these guys, or all of the tight ends, haven't had a lot of catches. It's not like it's Preston Daniel or Connor Briggs getting all the receptions for the tight ends. They're not throwing the ball that way. And you could be right. It could be to have that kind of extra lineman for Brett and for the running game. But I will say, it's not like they really have needed to have that safety blanket in Coldiron, and that's no shot at Jack Coldiron. He has been a very, very good player for this Redhawks team for the times that he has been here. But it's Coldiron used to be that safety blanket that Gabbert would have, but now Cade McDonald has evolved into that. So I don't necessarily see it as like the end of the world. Obviously, I would love to see them get more involved, but it's not the worst thing in the world that they're using them more for blocking than catching. But I'm sure they'd probably like to have a few more receptions, maybe a touchdown here and there.
Right. Well, speaking of touchdowns, let's talk about the unit that limited Central Michigan to just 1 touchdown on Saturday, the defense. Obviously, this has been a focal point of Miami for the last 2 seasons. They are notorious for having a very good defense, and they showed exactly why on Saturday. Another just dominant display. I mean, you look at the last 3 games that Miami's played: 38-14, 30-20, and that easily could have been 30-6 against OU, and then 46-7. Like that, those are dominant defensive displays, and they are exactly what this defense is about. I mean, we talked about it before the game, limiting the rushing attack out of the quarterback. I was surprised that they went with Jefferson over Bert Emanuel. Again, I'm not in the room when they make those decisions, but on paper, I thought that Emanuel would give them a better look.
I believe he was injured, if I remember from the broadcast.
Oh, is he? I'll double check.
Yeah. I don't know if he was listed on the injury report, but I remember the broadcast saying like he was hurt.
Well, that would make a lot more sense. That's on me. Let me see here.
But yeah, like you were saying, the defense did exactly what they were talking about. I want to shout out Ryan Strader. He leads the MAC in PBUs, pass breakups. He leads them with 10. He is evolving into the star that we keep talking about. Like you said last week, I believe it was last week, but the earth is covered by 70% water. Ryan Strader covers the other 30%. And that is exactly what he's been doing. Where, I mean, he's got the pass breakups. He's got 1 or 2 interceptions on the season, but he's evolving into the star that we want him to be, and hopefully he sticks around.
Yeah, for the record, Bert Emanuel was out. Jack does not know ball. Jack did not read this availability report that day, so that fully falls on me. My apologies. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Strader's becoming a guy that you can feel confident shutting down one side of the field. You can put him on a number one receiver and be like, okay, that's going to be a battle, but Strader's up for it. So you're confident in that. I mean, the rest of the secondary is really good too. The passing attack was really never a threat, in my opinion. Obviously, we talked about Jefferson's kind of limited with his arm before the game, so we kind of figured the going in that if they went with Jefferson, there was going to be more of a rush-focused attack. And they took away the rush defense too. Like there was very little offensive momentum outside of the one drive that kind of worried us for a second. But outside of that, there wasn't a ton that Central Michigan did that really put any sort of fear into me. It felt like Miami controlled this game from the jump.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things about Jefferson that they did is they just tried to get him some rhythm throws, just some short rhythm throws to get him get him in, get him in rhythm. But he only had 62 yards. He threw the ball 17 times, completed it 7. He had 62 yards, a long of 14 yards, and 1 interception. So CMU kind of showed their hand on that one, where it was, we're starting a true freshman because our quarterbacks are hurt, and the first couple of passes he throws are either at the line of scrimmage or a yard or two in front or behind the line of scrimmage. So they kind of showed their hand with that one, and Miami was able to adjust their defense. Not even adjust their defense. I think Miami knew that they were going to sell out for the run each and every time. So Miami did a great job of containing the run and making it a very disgusting day for the CMU offense.
Yeah, and I mean, once again, Salopek, the star of the show, once again just showing that why he is one of the best defenders in this conference. 8 tackles, 2 TFLs. Felt like once again he was just everywhere. He was leading that defense. Well, I mean, what more can we really say about him? I feel like we talk about it every week. But I do want to shout out some new faces getting in on the action later on in the game. Jackson Pons, freshman, gets his first pick of his career at Miami. So credit to him. Really, I forget how it exactly went, if it was just a tip drill or if it was just straight to him. But I think it was kind of just right at him, and you expect him to make that play either way. But still, kudos to him getting on the board, first career pick at Miami. And then a bunch of players on the D-line that we really haven't talked about this season. Adam Trick, Roosevelt Andrews, both recording TFLs. I mean, that's just a credit to how deep and how good that defensive line is, getting pressured. I mean, obviously it's late on in the game and they're kind of forced to throw the ball a little bit more, but still credit for getting home, credit for sticking with it, and they got their TFLs to show for it. Yeah,
absolutely. Those guys, it's funny because it kind of goes to what Kotecki was saying about the basketball team, but this Miami defense has got depth too. I mean, we saw it here. It's like they can kind of plug in anybody and they can go in and they can make an impact. And a little bit of a record watch for Matt Solopek. He is trying to become the first Miami player, and I don't know what the record is nationally, but he's trying to become at least the first Miami player to record 100 total tackles in 4 straight seasons. He's currently at 71. He's averaging almost 9 tackles a game, and they have 4 games left.
I think 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, it's 4 or 5 games. Let's just take a look. Ball State, Kent State, Northern Illinois, Bowling Green. 4. They got 4 games left, and then plus the MAC championship if they make it there. However, if you're just counting regular season, he's got 4 games to do it. And, if he's averaging almost 9 a game, that's 36 plus 71. That's over 100. That's 107 tackles.
Yeah,
if he continues at his current pace, that gets him there, and that'd be huge. That'd be huge. And we talked about it. I mean, we talk about him all the time. He's going to be such a tough hole to fill next year. But I mean, man, he is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about him basically every week at this point because every week he just keeps being the MVP of that defense. We talked about it obviously we didn't have the podcast yet, but last season too, he was the focal point. So he's been the leader of this defense for now, as you said, 4 years. Like he has truly become a dominant force that these teams that we play have to really account for. And that, okay, if you take away Salopek, I mean, we have playmakers in every other position. I mean, just some of the names I mentioned that haven't really got a ton of praise this year that we haven't talked about. Another one, Oscar McWood, had a TFL and a half. And I feel like we said his name maybe 2 or 3 times on the show, and he's still a really talented linebacker, but obviously doesn't always get the credit because, I mean, we talk about guys like Salopek and Ty Wise and Brian Ugu, but I mean, they're playmakers all over this defense.
Yeah, McWood breaking out of his brother Ryan McWood's shadow a little bit here. Good to see that. And yeah, you mentioned Luke Evans in the notes, at least. That was your breakout candidate. He had half a tackle for loss. And then shout out Don Jobin. Set the Yager Stadium record in field goals and tied the Miami record for field goals in one game. So shout out Jobin.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Martin said it after the game too. They joked around, or at least some of the guys in the press box were joking around that they should have let Jobin kick the last one that they gave to McLaughlin. Give him the record, but you got to give your backup some kicks too. So shout out Jobin. I think Coach Martin said it after the UMass game. He's the only player that Coach Martin's given a scholarship to on special teams, like out of high school. I'd have to go back and make sure I'm correct on that, but I'm pretty sure that he was the only person that they've actually recruited to kick at Miami. Obviously,
Jobin or McLaughlin?
Jobin.
Okay.
I know that he sat behind Nicholson for a couple of years, but I mean, he's just as good. Obviously, may not have the range that Nicholson does, but you get him to his range, and I think he's 90% on the season. He's really good, and obviously Graham Nicholson's kind of been the focal point at Miami for the last couple of years, but Jobin has carried that torch spectacularly this season. So shout out to him.
I mean, I was going to say the fact that Jobin is the only player that Martin has ever given a scholarship to on special teams, and we had the freaking Lou Groza award winner last year. I mean, that should tell you the confidence level in this kid. But,
yeah.
We should probably get going on to Ball State. It's the first edition of MACTion. We are so back.
We made it. It's my favorite time of the year. I said it last week too. MACTion's my favorite time of the year. I love MACTion. This is playing on national TV and giving college football fans who are in dire need of some games to watch the chance to watch these teams that oftentimes aren't on TV is awesome. You get to hear these stories that we talk about weekly and see them on a national scale. So I love it. It's my favorite time of the year. We've got some fun ones this year too, some really fun games.
Yeah.
Like Ball State, Kent State, Northern Illinois at home on a Tuesday night is going to be a really fun game.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, but let's stay on target before I get ahead of myself about Northern Illinois. Let's talk about Ball State. Tough road matchup, obviously a midweek game. The passing game's their key. They are the number one passing team by yards in the MAC. They got a freshman quarterback, Caden Simonza, who's locked down the QB1 role, and he's either really good or just kind of meh, depending on how he plays. Some really good games, like he put up 75% completion and 3 touchdowns against Central Michigan, 60%, 2 TDs against NIU, but then he's had some bad ones. Like obviously you look at the 3 interceptions, 5 sacks against James Madison, and 111 yards and an interception against Miami. Obviously very good football teams, very challenging defenses, but if Miami can get pressure, then suddenly we're looking at a guy you can force into some bad throws.
Yeah. First true pocket passer that Miami's faced. And we've talked about how the secondary has been much improved over the last few weeks, few games. But I think this is going to be one of the first real tests inside of the MAC that they're going to have to face. I hope that they can take some lessons that they learned from the Power 5 games that they had to play, or the Power 4, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, screw conference realignment. I'll say it. I don't like it. I'm okay with UMass joining the MAC because I've already been a MAC team, but still don't like it. Preserve the MAC. I thought we weren't touching the MAC. I thought we had all agreed.
We thought the MAC was sacred. We thought the MAC was off limits.
I thought we were off limits, but if we had to have another team join the MAC, I'd probably like Marshall to rejoin the MAC. So at least they all have MAC blood in them. But anyways, I'm getting way off tangent here. You could tell I think a lot about conference realignment. So, but yeah, this is going to be the first true test that Miami has to face in the MAC. We talked. I've already mentioned Ryan Strader, but Eli Blakey's going to have to step up. I mean, everybody in that secondary is going to have to step up and beyond their A game. It's not just Ryan Strader, but I want to say Ryan Strader is probably going to get targeted a decent amount, unless they pull the Darrell Revis route where they don't target the best player on the field. Or player in the secondary. But yeah, Miami is going to have to get a lot of pressure to the quarterback, and we've talked about how good they are at doing that. They've been very, very good at QB pressures as of late. May not always show up in the stack or a TFL, but they've been very, very good with getting pressure to the quarterback. So top tier effort from Ugu, from Solopek, from Wise, from Washington, from all the guys that we just mentioned that will be plug and plays. So I'm really excited to see what Miami ends up doing on defense, because it could be a high scoring game, honestly. Like this could be one of those games where it's a shootout to the end.
Yeah, looking through Ball State's stats, and I got to do a little more deep dive on film. It seems like they have a really unique scheme where they target their running back and tight end more than like any of their receivers. The tight end leads the team in catches. I have his name here. Tanner Koziel leads the team in receiving yards and touchdowns. And Braden Sloan has 300 yards receiving as well. And he has 500 yards on the ground. He's got 800 yards from scrimmage. Those are the two focal points of this offense. The receivers, from what I could tell, were just kind of okay and haven't really played a huge role. It seems like those are the two guys that you really have to take out of the offense. And if you're able to do that, then you really limit what this offense can do.
Yeah.
So that to me puts a lot of strain on the linebackers. Like you're looking at Koziel through the seam or in the slot, coming over the middle. You're looking at Braden Sloan coming out of the backfield. You're going to probably have to put a linebacker on him because you can't put a cornerback on coverage in the box. You can, but who knows how that works out. So you're looking at guys like McWood and Blakey to come down, and that's where Ball State's going to try and beat us. And if Miami can take away those two options receiving, then it might be a long day for that offense.
Yeah, one of the good things about Solopek, I mean, again, I know we talk about him a ton, but he's one of the best coverage linebackers that Miami has. So if you got, Koziel coming up a seam, like Solopek can cover that, and then he can seamlessly hand it off to one of the safeties behind him. And then, our safeties are pretty good at covering, big body receivers, big body tight ends. And I think you're right. If they are able to eliminate the top two guys who are able to be receiving threats, this offense is, it's not going to be as good. But again, I think it really goes back to getting pressure on Samanza. Like if he is prone to taking sacks, he had 5 sacks against JMU, like you said, like he's not going to escape the pocket. So you don't really ever have to worry about the run. And even if he gashes you or even if he, escapes the pocket, gets you 2-3 yards, he's not doing that every play.
Right.
He's not going to build up. So I guess you'd rather see him try to get those 2 to 3 yards than try to pass the ball at this rate.
Yeah, I'd rather them take a linebacker out of the box and put him in coverage, put an extra guy on Koziel, put an extra guy on Sloan. I know we're running short on time here, so let's really quickly talk about Ball State's defense. It's, for lack of better term, the stats tell an ugly story. They're the second worst defense by yards per game in the MAC. They give up 477 yards per game. They allow 40 points per game. And Miami's offense is on a roll. They just put up 46, their season high. It's, I think, the most they've had in a MAC game in several years. This is a bad combination for Ball State. They're playing Miami at the worst time because this defense really has not shown that they can, get anything going. And Miami's offense has just found another gear.
Yeah, you were a lot more curt with your words than I was for the defense. But yeah, the defense, as you mentioned, has not been good. They've been all right with creating turnovers. They got 4 interceptions and 5 fumbles. But I think with a Miami offense that is as hot as they are right now, and look, they really have not turned the ball over in the last 3-ish games or so. They have held on to the ball. You can't rely on your defense forcing a turnover against an offense that is completely in sync right now. And yeah, I mean, there are a couple guys to watch out for. Keep an eye on Berger and Tolsma off the edge. They have 8.5 sacks combined this season. But I think with the way that the offensive line has been playing as of late, I don't necessarily see Berger and Tolsma being a huge factor in this game.
Yeah, I just want to do a quick shout out too, because this came across in the stat research I did, and I thought it was pretty interesting. Freshman linebacker Sam Feeney has 7 tackles this season in pretty limited action, and 3 of them have been sacks.
Hello.
So that's just an interesting little stat to keep an eye on. Like if he's in the game, he's got a pretty high chance of getting a sack. So keep an eye on him. But unfortunately, we are out of time for this week. We have hit our hour threshold. Ted, it is once again a pleasure having you on the show, and thank you for joining me every week. Anything you want to say before we get on out of here?
Yeah, I'm excited. Excited college basketball is coming back. I mean, like I said, we got to talk to Jackson Kotecki a little bit. We're trying to put a little more into the works with some of these interviews that we want to have more of. So hopefully in the next few weeks, be on the lookout for maybe some more interviews here and there.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's the best time of year. We're at I guess the sports equinox just ended last night with the World Series, but we've got football to talk about, basketball coming up. We got hockey to talk about. We got postseason for fall sports to talk about. A lot of exciting stuff coming in the coming weeks for the show. Thank you all for watching this week. This has been episode 8 of Red Brick Recap. We'll see you all next week.